Okay, here we go. It is Tuesday, January 14th. We recap the Vikings and Rams game from last night. We discuss all the Mikes in the NFL, including Mike Vrabel, Mike McCarthy, and Mike Tomlin. We have a major Roki Sasaki update, as his decision is looming. And of course, my long-awaited review of LiAngelo Ball's new single, Tweaker. This is the Early Game Podcast. Listen to the show in the mornings, on your commute, whenever and wherever, so you can be a part of today's sports conversations. Let's go. Okay. So we had the last game of Wild Card Weekend, no longer known as Super Wild Card Weekend. And this was between the Vikings and the Rams. The game was originally supposed to happen in Los Angeles. They moved the game due to the devastating fires. And so the Rams were going to host, but it was going to be in Arizona instead of in LA at SoFi. This game started the exact way I thought it would. Stafford came out hot. He scored a touchdown on the opening drive. I don't want to weaponize or make a mockery of the fires happening in LA, but I kind of had a feeling that they would galvanize behind the shared cause for their hometown. As good as Stafford looked early, Sam Darnold looked horrible. Looked really bad. He couldn't make decisions with the football. He fumbled in the second quarter, leading to a touchdown. They went into the half down 24-3, and that was pretty much all she wrote. And so after all that, the Sam Darnold magical season is over. He was just horrendous over these past two games. He couldn't make decisions with the ball. Last night he got sacked 9 times. Think about that for a second. The Rams held Justin Jefferson to 5 receptions and 58 yards. Jordan Addison was held to 2 receptions and 29 yards. Let's be clear about something. Sam Darnold cost himself $100 million last night. Not just last night, over the last 2 games. All he needed to do was be okay. Be average. Play a regular game. He was able to do that last year with the 49ers. Not like he was great last year when he took some snaps for them. When Brock Purdy got injured. The great part was he was just okay. The issue was last night and last week against the Lions, he couldn't make the regular throws. He couldn't make the normal decisions. The price of normalcy for a quarterback in the NFL in 2025, it's huge. You get paid a lot of money for being normal, for being average. And Sam Darnold just couldn't be that this week and last week. It was so obvious that the first 16 games of the season were more likely a fluke than that Sam Darnold had found something. The argument was that he fit in the system so well. That the Vikings were a team and their offense was a system that Sam Darnold could thrive under. We've seen it so many times where quarterbacks we don't have a lot of faith in just figure it out within a system. Brock Purdy is certainly one of them. And now people had thought that Sam Darnold found his perfect situation. Just like Geno Smith for the Seahawks. Or Baker Mayfield, maybe to more of an extent last year than this year. But Baker Mayfield probably proved people wrong since he's on his second offensive coordinator and was great again. But Sam Darnold seemingly is not just a system quarterback. And not in a good way. You're telling me J.J. McCarthy can't come in here and be as good as Sam Darnold was? A little bit better? Overall, the talent in the entire 18-game sample that was the 2024 season for the Vikings? Meanwhile, the Rams did what they do. The defense was fantastic. Mentioned the 9 sacks. And Stafford was solid. He wasn't amazing. He did what he needed to do. He was great early on, and he closed out the game. And so now, the NFC matchups are set. It is the Rams and the Eagles, and it is the Lions and the Commanders. And I'm going to tease my picks later on this week. I was looking at the spreads just now. Commanders are plus 10. The Rams are plus 5.5 today. I think both those teams are going to win. I do not think Philly or the Lions are going to win this next weekend, and I think that the NFC Championship game is going to be Rams-Commanders. Yes, I think both games are going to be upsets. It's the only thing that hit me this past weekend as I was watching these games. Granted, I don't know what the Lions will look like coming out of their bye week. We'll get more into that later on in the week. Okay, speaking about my picks. So this past week, we just want to review. We went 3-2. I pushed on the Bucks game. I had the Bucks plus 3. They won 20. They lost 23-20. Really, I went 4-2 if you count Bills money line because I said take Broncos plus 9, but take the Bills money line. That actually looked like a solid bet until about halfway through the third quarter. But we'll be back with more picks. 3-2, not bad. Not a bad starter. Not bad starting. Remember, I got that. I had Rams plus 3. That was probably my best bet. Okay, so we mentioned all the mics that we're going to talk about. And so yesterday midday, we got news. There had been conversation over the last couple weeks as to whether Mike McCarthy was going to stay in Dallas. His contract had expired. Initially, we thought that he was going to stay. The Bears requested an interview with Mike McCarthy during Week 18, and the Cowboys denied that interview. But yesterday, it was reported that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, this is what I love, mutually agreed to part ways. Nice way of putting it. Good press release. Mutually agreed to part ways. Whatever that means. They probably didn't want to pay him. So in 84 regular season games, Mike McCarthy between the Packers... in 84 regular season games with the Cowboys, he is 49-35 with the Cowboys. He made the playoffs 3 times in 5 seasons. He only won 1 playoff game in 2022. But boy, Stephen A., you better carve out some time this morning to go watch First Take. It is going to be Electric Factory. But where do the Cowboys go from here? I think there are several paths. Path 1. I mentioned it last week. Go look at Early Pod YouTube. There's the short. I said, maybe I knew something. Maybe I got my sources. I said Deion will be a perfect fit for the Cowboys. He obviously played there. He has a relationship with Jerry Jones. The question is, would that create too much of a circus? You are adding Deion, who brings his Louis baggage with him, and he makes headlines quite often, to Jerry Jones, who does the exact same thing. Or do you go with a guy like Pete Carroll? He could be a big boy in the room. I loved Pete Carroll initially for the Bears job. I think franchises who could use somebody to come in and be normal, I'm talking a lot about normalcy this episode, but franchises who could use someone coming in and being a big boy, making big boy decisions. Pete Carroll provides that, and I think both the Bears and the Cowboys could use that. Not that Mike McCarthy wasn't a big boy, but they need someone to calm down all the stories going on there. Are there good coordinators who could handle Jerry Jones? Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson? The whole thing is a mess for the Cowboys. This is what Ari Meirov tweeted. The Cowboys' handling of negotiations and money is downright baffling. They basically sat out free agency last year, dragged their feet with player extensions, and created unnecessary drama with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott by waiting until the 11th hour to get deals done. And it's not just them. This has been a pattern with several players over the years. They made Mike McCarthy and his entire staff coach out their contracts, blocked McCarthy from interviewing with the Bears last week, only to part ways anyway. In Week 18, they even benched Cooper Rush to avoid paying a $250,000 incentive for playing 55% of snaps on the year. He was at 52%. Completely avoidable chaos and not what you'd expect from America's team. Exactly. It's crazy to me. As a kid, all I heard about was the Dallas Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys. They've had zero to show for it. I grew up in the Tony Romo era, and it was always confusing to me. Now, granted, the first real year I played fantasy football, I had Tony Romo, and he was horrible. And so I'd always thought, well, this guy's insanely overrated. It is crazy to me what we've come to with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're my age, if you're 27, all you know is the Dallas Cowboys not succeeding. All you know is good regular seasons, besides this year, and completely failing in the playoffs. They've had zero success. Let me put this clearly. The Dallas Cowboys are not America's team, and they haven't been for a long time. I have never positioned them in my head as America's team. The Green Bay Packers, to me, are more of America's team than the Dallas Cowboys. The New England Patriots, to me, are more of America's team than the Dallas Cowboys. It's over. There's no more. People in their late 20s, guys in their late 20s, people in their late 20s, do not think of the Dallas Cowboys in the regard that Jerry Jones thinks we do. We just don't. That's over. There's not even a debate. I'm sorry. Maybe the older generation will debate that. Will think that. Later generations might think that. Not mine. Nobody my age thinks that. So the question now is, where does Mike McCarthy end up? Here's the thing. I've never really been a big fan of Mike McCarthy. He kind of rode Aaron Rodgers. Back when he was with Green Bay, he won one Super Bowl with them. He coached 13 seasons in Green Bay. He made the playoffs 9 times. He won 10 playoff games and a Super Bowl. And won a Super Bowl. Here's the thing, though. This is what kind of struck me. I was thinking about this yesterday. Doesn't this sound a lot like Mike Tomlin? I looked into it. Mike Tomlin had 18 seasons with the Steelers, made the playoffs 12 times, and won 8 games, 1 Super Bowl. Both Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin have coached 18 seasons. They've both appeared in the playoffs 12 times. They've both won a Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy won 11 playoff games, and Mike Tomlin has won 8. These two coaches are one and the same. We're calling for Mike Tomlin's job, but saying how great of a coach Mike McCarthy is? Does that make any sense? Now, I think that it's somewhere in the middle. I think both coaches need to prove they can be better in the playoffs. They can take their teams further. But let's not pretend one coach, Mike McCarthy, should be more sought after than the other, Mike Tomlin. And let's not bag on Mike Tomlin that he doesn't have success when there's another coach who's pretty much exactly the same and is going to get a job really easy. We are seeing, the funny part is, after people were calling for Mike Tomlin's job, let's watch the Mike McCarthy saga go down now and see how fast he ends up with the team and where he ends up. Steelers fans, you will see exactly what would happen if Mike Tomlin were fired. How fast he would get scooped up, and how much interest there would be. You're going to see that firsthand right now. Watch it. But anyways, Mike McCarthy's better for it. He'll probably get into a good situation. And he doesn't have to deal with the Jerry Jones circus anymore. And by the way, it was reported last night, Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders have in fact spoken. Jordan Schultz reported sources Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders have spoken, and while a formal interview hasn't been scheduled yet, there is mutual interest. My understanding is the two are going to stay in contact on this. Man, I wonder who said that first last week. But can the Cowboys figure out a way to bring in Shador? Because Deion said he's only going to coach Shador in the NFL. Shiloh shouldn't be so hard for them to bring in. But I heard a great idea last night. Would the Titans trade the number 1 overall pick in a package including Dak Prescott? Now that's an interesting idea. Maybe we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But let's move on. Because we had another Mike coach in the NFL. And I didn't mention this on yesterday's show, but it's pretty big. We just had so much to talk about. But Mike Vrabel was hired as the Patriots head coach. He was introduced to the media yesterday. Remember, he played for the Patriots. He was inducted into their Ring of Honor or whatever they call it, Circle of Honor, I don't know, last year. Here's the thing about Vrabel. Think about it this way. He's never had a quarterback in Tennessee. He never had a quarterback. He had Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill, and Will Levis. And so now, he kind of has one in Drake May. I love this. He will remake their defense. He finally has a promising quarterback in Drake May. And honestly, I'm nervous as a Bills fan. I think this could be next year's version of this year's Commanders. Great hire by the Pats. And it was such an obvious one. But I think he is going to be great. And the comments he was saying yesterday about taking advantage of mistakes, that's the exact mindset you need to have. Especially with a roster like what the Patriots have. And so it seems that so clearly the Gerard Mayo firing was warranted. And they got the better end of the deal. Okay. Not much to talk about in the NBA. Mentioned it before. The big story yesterday did not really have to do with actual basketball, but LiAngelo Ball signed a record deal. To me, it's insane how quiet the Balls are now. If you remember, when Lonzo was first drafted by the Lakers, the amount of noise around that family was insanity. LeVar Ball was going on TV shows, their father. We never hear about LeVar anymore. And there are rumors about there being bad relationships between the sons and their father. LaMelo obviously ended up being the best. Lonzo was so injured. Obviously, that he never really panned out so much. LiAngelo was always considered the worst. But I think like 2 weeks ago, he came out with this song called Tweaker. And now he got signed to a big contract, a big record deal with Def Jam. And good for him. He was never going to be good in the NBA. He only looked good and only looked appealing because of his name. So I checked out the song. He goes by G3. The song actually isn't so bad. Not that it's like the type of music I normally listen to. Good for him. I want to know where LeVar is. Can we hear from LeVar? That guy was Electric Factory back when we used to hear from him. He was can't miss. Stephen A. should invite him back to First Take, and we should get a reunion for that. A Stephen A. and LeVar reunion. Okay. Nothing really happened in the NHL either. The new arena I was speaking about yesterday for the Flyers, for the 76ers, I didn't mention that it also is going to host the Flyers. So they're confirmed to be building a new arena in downtown Philly. It's going to host the Flyers, and it is going to host the 76ers. Okay, let's move on. We've got one last thing here to talk about. And it is in baseball, and it is a major update regarding Japanese phenom pitcher Roki Sasaki. And so yesterday, the reports started trickulating out about teams that were out of the running for Roki Sasaki, that were told they are out. It started with the San Francisco Giants, then we got word that it was the Yankees. Now, the funny part about that Yankees report, to me, was that it was reported, there was like an hour period where it was reported that the Yankees were told they were out, but the Mets were unlikely. I was just like, that is so odd. Why can't, like, Sasaki's camp just call, if the Mets were so confident they weren't getting him, Roki Sasaki's camp wasn't just going to call them and tell them they're out? Whatever. It ended up being as much hope as I still had, which wasn't a lot, but I still had a little bit of hope. Then it was reported that the Mets were out. We got word that the Rangers were out, the Texas Rangers, and then finally, right before we got the finalists, we got word that the Cubs were also out. And so, just so we remember correctly, I had spoken about a few times on the show about the 6 teams that were the finalists for Roki Sasaki. Mets, Yankees, Cubs, Rangers, Giants, Padres, Dodgers. It actually ended up being 7. And so we got word yesterday of 5 of those teams being out. Right after we got word of 5 of those teams being out, we learned about 3 teams who were finalists. San Diego Padres, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Toronto Blue Jays. And so, as it was reported last week that Roki Sasaki might be adding teams, and then it said there was a mystery team, that mystery team has revealed itself, and it is the Toronto Blue Jays. I just want to say one thing before we get into those 3 finalists. It is crazy to me what has happened to the San Francisco Giants. They had so much success from 2010 to 2020. They were considered a big-time organization. And in that time span, they were able to sign big-time players. Let's not forget. They got, a lot of the times, the top starting pitchers were available. They went there. Johnny Cueto, I remember clearly. Jeff Samardzija. They developed great pitching. Andrew McCutchen, remember when his first time he was a free agent and that was big? He signed there. Evan Longoria. They signed a lot of big-time free agents. I think it is crazy that they are seemingly unable to do that anymore. Look, they got Willy Adames. They signed Justin Verlander. They're just not the destination that they used to be. And they should have been a finalist in this sweepstakes. Considering the fact that they're on the West Coast, so close to Japan, they are considered a great organization, kind of a little more on the smaller market side of things, meaning they're not in the big-time headlines, and that was something that Roki Sasaki wanted. But man, it is tough for the Giants organization right now. And if you remember correctly, Arson Judge, almost signed there. That could have been huge for them. And that narrative that they're not the same destination that they used to be. But here we are. They're just having a tough time getting players to be there. And I'll just speak about the Mets one more time on this. It was crazy to me. They made so much sense for Sasaki. Besides for the fact that he wouldn't be as close to Japan as he would be on the West Coast. And let me use that as a segue. Look, the Toronto Blue Jays are not signing Roki Sasaki. You're telling me he's going to go play in Canada? Even further away than the other places he was considering from Japan? Him and his agent, Joe Wolf, are trying to save face. They added the Blue Jays to the final three so it doesn't look like he was only choosing between between the Dodgers and the Padres, who the Padres don't even have a chance either. Frankly. He's going to put himself in that situation where there's a fight between the owners, one suing the other one, where money's an issue. You really think he's putting himself in that situation? Roki Sasaki. Let me say this for everyone if they didn't understand until now. Roki Sasaki is going to be a Los Angeles Dodger. It's plain and clear. And I was thinking about this. It is ridiculous what the Dodgers have been able to do with Ohtani, Yamamoto, and presumably now with Sasaki. There's nothing baseball can do about it. But the fact that they're essentially building a Japanese super team and they clearly have such an unfair advantage. Not unfair. It's fair. What's unfair about it? These guys are choosing them. Especially Sasaki is the perfect example. Money didn't matter. I'm acting like he already signed there. If he signs there, it's not because of money. There's no unfair advantage. It is an advantage. There's nothing baseball can do about it. And we're about to see, and again, assuming he signs there, we are about to see a Dodgers team who was so good and frankly so much better than the rest of baseball. We are about to see them dominate even more. They added Blake Snell already. They brought back Teoscar Hernandez. And Ohtani didn't even pitch last year. The rotation is just stupid. It is just stupid. When Yamamoto was healthy last year, he looked so good. So you have Ohtani, Yamamoto, Snell, add Sasaki to that, Kershaw, Glasnow. I mean, it is just ridiculous, and it is going to be extremely hard for whatever team in the National League or in the entire MLB for that matter. It's going to be extremely hard for them to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers. Okay. That's a show. Tomorrow, we'll see what we discuss. No football games tonight. We have basketball action. We got hockey action. We still have a bunch of MLB free agents not signed. This was the Early Game Podcast. Make sure you like, you subscribe, comment, follow on Spotify. We will be back tomorrow morning. Have a good day.